Welcome to the Women of Ihsan podcast. I'm your host, Sophia, and this is an invitation to join me and our amazing guests to find inspiration and insights into your own journey to Ihsan. If you ever feel overwhelmed or confused along the way, I'm also here to support you so you can tackle your challenges with confidence and make progress towards this lofty goal. To find out more about my work, check the episode description and make sure to subscribe.
والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر.
Bismillah walhamdulillah wassalatu wassalam ala rasulillah. Welcome to a new episode of the Women of Ihsan podcast. Today, it's a great honor and pleasure for me to host Jasmina Petersen, who's born and raised in Cape Town, South Africa. Jasmina has been in the media industry for 9 years, and she's been the presenter and producer of the AM Awakening programs, the Pre-Dom program at the Voice of the Cape. Jasmina also studied a one-year course in human resource management at the online university of Mancosa. I'm super happy to have you today, Jasmina, once again. Salamu alaikum and welcome on the show.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. And shukran so much, Sophia, for hosting me on your program. It's not every day that I get to be a host, on somebody else's program. And I am quite excited. Shukran so much for having me.
I'm also excited because I know how it feels to be on the other side.
Correct.
It's a nice exercise as well. So I'm really looking forward to this conversation, inshallah. So please tell us about yourself. We kind of picked from the bio that you are from South Africa. So anything you could add about your background? Maybe do you have a personal story to tell us?
Fantastic. Shukran so much, Sophia. So like you have rightfully mentioned, I am from Cape Town, South Africa. I've been born here. I attended school here in Cape Town, South Africa, and also madrasa as well. I think growing up, I was very fortunate to have or to be in a setting with my grandparents because my mother, she worked for us and she was a single mother. And growing up and having that pillar of strength with me, as a child, I think that really paved the way for me in all areas of my life. I think more so from an Islamic perspective and not so from an academic perspective, right? So with regards to when I was in school, I didn't really know that I was actually going to end up in media. I didn't know I wanted to be a journalist. And I also always said that, you know what, I'm going to become a journalist one day. Until one of my biology teachers, when I was in matric, I was doing an oral and she stopped me mid-sentence. And I thought to myself, I got so nervous. And I thought, is this teacher going to ask me something that I actually don't know? What is she going to ask me? And she said to me, have you ever considered being a radio jock, like a radio presenter, because you have the voice for that? And ever since that time, it actually stuck with me. And I think when I do look back on my life now, I think that sometimes Allah has granted me to become this radio presenter to help, many people. But it wasn't an easy journey, Sophia. I think that when I started out fresh from matric, because I wasn't privileged, we didn't come from money. I didn't have money. And, I don't understand how the women used to do it back then, but, there was never a time in my life where I can think that we didn't have any food to eat, even though it was only one breadwinner, and that was my grandfather at the time. And of course, now my mother later on, working and so forth. But at the time also, it was just, living paycheck to paycheck. And when I completed school, when I completed my matric, I of course had colleges call me, they wanted me to enroll in the colleges and, from various parts of Cape Town. And unfortunately, we didn't have the funds, and I needed to let that go. And then my grandfather knew someone that was at another radio station. So we've got about 2 radio stations here in Cape Town that is community based, that caters to the Muslim community. And then we have our other commercialized radio stations that's, like big and so forth. So I had to volunteer at one radio station, and then it wasn't working for me because I wasn't learning anything at that radio station. I then listened to the ad because growing up, we used to listen to the Voice of the Cape. And I, not knowing what happens behind the scenes, I just wanted to be, this radio presenter, because it sounds so cool and they've got all these amazing guests and all of that. And I'm like, yes, so I'm going to do that. And then I heard the ad on radio where they were looking for a presenter. They did like this presenter search training, and this is now the Voice of the Cape, right? So they had that ad. And then last minute, I remember that I sent through my application. So the ad called for you either interviewing someone or you reading a clip from the newspaper. And I decided to read a clip from the newspaper. And then I attended a 1 month course or a 1 month training workshop here at the Voice of the Cape. And it was just before the month of Ramadan. So then Ramadan came. I didn't do anything here at the radio station. And then I asked, or I messaged the programming manager at the time. I messaged her to find out if there's anything else for me. I then got to know, when I came here to the Voice of the Cape, I then got to know what radio was all about. And it's not only about just going on air and just hosting a program. There's a whole lot of things that goes on behind the scenes. You have your producer, you have the person that calls up the guests. You need to be creative, you need to think about content and so on. And for me, being fresh out of matric, not having anything to my name, and I think that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has granted it to be this way because the programming manager at the time, she saw the potential in me. And she said to me that I kind of remind her of her younger self. And she was my mentor. And being here at the Voice of the Cape, I used to think to myself, wow, I would want to sit in her, chair and so on. She's no longer here. She left the Voice of the Cape. She went on to do bigger things. But I used to think to myself, wow, she had, the work ethic that I also had, that drive, that passion. But it wasn't always easy because we needed to do so many things. We needed to come up with so many ideas and content. And somehow or the other, I thought to myself, maybe this is not for me. And I had an internship here at the Voice of the Cape, and I think it was like a 3-month internship program until she sat me down and she offered me a permanent position, and I turned it down. And I said to her, you know what? I actually don't feel that this is for me. And I wasn't even a radio presenter at that time. I was only a producer. And I can remember how I felt when I saw my name on a production sheet. So a production sheet is a sheet where you give your presenter that has all the information on of the program. So it's got the programming name on there, it's got the guest's name on there, and there's a little tab that says producer so and so. And my name was there, and I remember, seeing my name there. And for me and for my family, it was a big deal because this is the radio station that we grew up listening to. It's not everyone that gets into radio. We thought, oh no, these people are celebrities, and we used to attend the festivals and so forth. And little did I know that I was going to be working here at the Voice of the Cape, which I think it's such a great blessing, alhamdulillah. And it wasn't easy. And it was a lot of work. And I said, no, but I don't want to. And she's like, but you're really throwing a spanner in my work. So maybe you should consider it. And I had a very difficult time. And I was young at the time still. I was like 18, 19. I didn't know anything about radio. I didn't know anything about production or anything like that. And that is why it was so difficult for me. However, I continued further on, and I know that it was like a lot. Sometimes you feel like you can be so snowed under and you feel as if, this is just a job. It's like a burden for me. Although, why? But when I look back and I think to myself as to the person that I am or was back then to looking at where I am today, I think that this is a blessing in disguise for me, even though I had a lot of challenges that came my way in the work field specifically.
If you had to mention or maybe pick one of those challenges, maybe some turning points, what would it be so that we can, benefit from the lessons that you draw from these challenges?
I think I had a lot of challenges in my life personally, as well as my career. So I then decided, I didn't tell anyone, but I decided, you know what, this is too much for me. So I'm going to quit my job, you know, and I just, put my resignation in and I quit. I left and I came home and they heard the interview. They heard the exit into my grandparents heard the exit interview on the radio. And they didn't say anything to me. They understood, right? And I was at home and I needed that time because when I came back to the Voice of the Game, and that was 2 years later, in that time span, I was at home and I was struggling to find work, right? And then I got into some a call center work that I was there for like a few months. It was also a training program. And then I came back and I remember I went on my Musla and I asked Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah, I'm struggling so much. Grant me work. And that was a turning point for me because I was out of work. There wasn't an income, right? You must remember that now my grandparents, they were in the pensioners age already, right? So I was seeing to the household, my grandparents, as well as with my mother. So my mother then went on to, get her own home. And then, I would spend time at my mother and I would go live by my mother when I was 20. And then I would come to my grandparents and so forth. So I was, contributing both ways. And during that time, there wasn't any income. And that was a turning point for me where I decided there's no one else that can help me now except Allah. And I remember asking Allah, Allah, I ask of you to grant me work. I've been sending my CVs in to so many places and I haven't gotten a response. And I asked Allah and I was very specific. And I asked Allah, Allah, grant me a job where I will be happy in, even if it's a receptionist job, Allah, even if it's a job that, pays me little money, as long as I have something. And I remember asking Allah to grant me a job that pays me a certain amount of money. And then I was at home, I let it go. I let it go completely. I forgot about it. And, constantly I would now continue and, search for work and so on. I would go to interviews. I would do the interviews, but it wasn't a favorable response. I would think to myself, but why? What is wrong? Is there something wrong with my CV? Why are the people not, giving a positive response? And I remember at that time, I was so upset or I was so depressed. And I remember my mother used to tell me all the time because I was living with her now, right? And I was in my 20s. My mother used to tell me that, don't worry. Everything that you are doing, Allah sees that. And inshallah, we call it the rat race here in South Africa. I don't know if you know about the term, the rat race being like everyone wakes up early, everyone stands for the bus and everyone goes to work. And my mother's like, don't worry. and we know that you want to be part of this rat race, and Allah knows that. So you are going to get there. And I didn't know that. I was just so down. And then what happened was, it was in December, and I said, I'm not going to come back here to the Voice of the Cape, right? And then the receptionist, she calls me. She says to me, "Oh, Jasmina, I sent in my CV because the Voice of the Cape was advertising for another position as a technician, right? And I sent my CV. The manager then calls me, but there's no response. So I don't know who the person was, number one. All I know was the person's name and the person asking me questions, and that was it. The person didn't ask me to come in or anything like that, and I didn't get a response back. So the presenter, the receptionist then at the time calls me and says, "Oh, Jasmina, I'm going on leave. Would you like to stand in for me?" And I stood in for her as a receptionist, right? As a receptionist. And when she came back, I then got the job as a receptionist. Then the admin person at the time asked me, "Okay, so how much money would you want to earn?" And I said, anything is fine. And there was a specific amount, and I was so happy about this. And I said to my mommy, I was on holiday at my grandparents' place, and I said to my mommy, "I've got a job." She's like, "Where did you get a job?" I'm like, "Yeah, at Voice of the Cape." And then she's like, "Oh, Alhamdulillah, Alhamdulillah." And I was a receptionist, right? So the programming manager then at the time, she then gave my CV in for recommendation. And I think that if Allah didn't use her as a tool, then I wouldn't have been here today. And it's only because of her that I am here today. But she's not here. She's moved on, right? And then she kept on telling me, "You know what? You wasted here. Your talent is wasted here. Come over to the production side of things." And that's when I accepted, and that is when I became the presenter, the producer only of this program. It used to be AM Inspirations, it's now AM Awakenings. And I used to think to myself, but this is a very spiritual program. And I'm not that spiritual. I don't think I'm that connected that I can produce a program like this. And she's like, "No, no, no, you're going to be fine. You're going to be fine." And if it was not for this program, I wouldn't have been able to cope with the passing of my grandmother. So my grandmother then passes on, right? And that is a big janaza that we have. It's the first janaza that we have in our family, our close family. And everyone is shattered. I'm crying. It was me, it was my two aunts, it was my mother, and it was my sister-in-law that helped wash the body. And it was on a Friday that helped wash the body. However, my grandmother then, before she passed on, she actually kind of said her goodbyes to us. And she said, "I'm going home. You must be satisfied that I'm going home." And we said, "No, don't say that. That's crazy." And it was such a beautiful janaza. However, I was so heartbroken because she was my pillar. She was the one who took care of me when my mother was at work. She was the one who would sit with me with my Quran, with my lessons. She was the one who I would go to when I would I would have to do a lesson before I need to go to madrasa. She was the one who encouraged me to complete or to go to madrasa every single day. And I was just so shattered. I was just so heartbroken. And it was just nothing was the same ever. And I decided that because she was buried at the Mowbray Maqbara here in Cape Town, which is not far from where the Voice of the Cape studios are, right? So I decided, I wasn't married at the time. No, I wasn't married at the time. So I think I was probably in like my 20s, my mid 20s, right? And then I decided I'm restless. So I'm going to take wudu here at the office, and then I'm going to walk up. It's probably about like a 20-minute walk. I'm going to walk up and I'm going to go to the maqbara of my grandmother. So I get there, and then I recited for her, and I used to call her mommy. So I recited for her, and when I was done reciting for her, I asked her, Mommy, are you okay where you are? I'm not okay. Just grant me, just come to me, or let me know if you're okay where you are. And I said, I'm going to go now. And I spoke to her as per normal, and I was standing there at her grave. And then I left work, and then life went on. A few days later, then she came to me in a dream, and she said to me, my child, don't worry, because here where I am. And it was almost like a joke. And she says to me, but I wasn't laughing, but everyone that I told this to was laughing. And she said to me, my child, don't worry. Here where I am, I get 2 bananas and I don't even ask for one. And that, for me, when I got that, that was my closure, Sophia. I could go on with life. I could set everything. I just continued living. Serious, I just continued living, and that was it for me. And I think
Subhanallah.
that, it's so beautiful, because I told my auntie this, because my auntie was very, very upset, and she was coping with it, but she was also mourning a lot, man. And I said, maybe that is what you need to do. Maybe, ask, go to the maqbara and so on and ask. But that is my closure that I needed. And I think that today everyone says that she probably would have been so proud of me, because I'm still working here at the Voice of the Cape. And I think that I'm born to do this, and Allah has granted me to do this. However, Allah remains the focus of my life. And I think working at a radio station such as the Voice of the Cape, where you continuously in remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, whether it is the work that you do, whether it is the nasihas that you need to listen to. Yes, we have our ups and we have our down moments. There are times when, I'm going to be very honest with you, Sophia, there are times when I feel that, you know what, I don't feel like making Asr Salah now. Or I'm like, do I need to go make Salah now again? However, I need to push through that. And then it just automatically, something just happens, or I just happen to listen to a lecture on, how to speak to Allah, or how to reach out to Allah. And I'm still trying. I'm constantly in this developing stage of wanting to be completely in contentment with whatever Allah has granted me. There's still this little bit of me wanting to control certain things, where I can't leave it in Allah's hands. For example, if I want to maybe get a promotion at work, or maybe I want to get a new car, I'm always thinking, but Allah, where am I going to get the money from? That car is so much money. Where am I going to get the money from? And I think that I'm asking Allah, and I think all of us do it. We ask Allah based on our limitless or our limited beliefs, right? Whereas we need to ask of Allah based on Allah's limitlessness. And I think for me, that was really the turning point for me. Doing this program was a turning point. If it wasn't for this program, I wouldn't be the person that I am today.
That's really amazing to hear from you, and the story of your grandmother, Rahimallah. May Allah have mercy on her, and reunite you all in, in the highest abode of Jannah al-Firdaus. Allahumma ameen. Really beautiful, and subhanallah, I hope this also gives hope to anyone who's listening to us right now. So thank you so much for sharing. So I can hear how faith has been this this guiding light throughout your life, from a very young age, you always turn to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to find strength. And like you said, sometimes we have the ups and downs, and we need to push ourselves. And it's only human, subhanallah. It is what it is. This dunya here is an abode of tests and trials.
True.
It's not always what we wish for, and it's normal because we're not in paradise yet. We
Yeah.
need to be tested. We need to feel the struggle
Yeah. So true. So
to
true.
earn to earn the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He created the angels who are submitted to him for millions and millions of years. They are only doing tasbih and tahleel and takbir, and this is all what they do, and they never disobey him. But us, we have our own judgment, and we can make mistakes, we can sin, but the best of us are those who return to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and ask for forgiveness, because he loves to forgive. And he created us, Bani Adam, so that he would show us his mercy and compassion, and truly his infinite generosity and forgiveness, subhanallah. So alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah. And I just find it so amazing that this work atmosphere that you are in at the Voice of the Cape. But like you said, you are in constant you are having constant reminders of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and it's really some kind of optimal workplace, because it's not everybody who has that
Correct.
from the morning till the evening you're
Yes.
going to hear some reminders about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and the people of the past, and also from now, who are inspirations for us as Muslims. Subhanallah, it's really amazing. I find it also interesting that you said you had some limiting beliefs,
Yeah.
and it is true that we still, like, I feel like we will always have limiting beliefs, because like you said, our own minds, they are very limited, and there will always be things that we don't know, and it is by design. We will never be able to know and comprehend and encompass everything. This belongs to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the one thing you mentioned, and I think so many of us, we kind of fall in this trap of shaitan, because he wants to trick us. When we ask for something, we feel like, oh my God, how am I going to get this? Like, I
Yeah.
don't have the resources, I don't have the money. Like, it's all the negative. I can't. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he doesn't have any limits.
Yeah.
So
Correct.
how did you overcome this? And was there maybe another misconception that you had, or limiting belief, or something that was holding you back at some point in your life,
Yes.
and you managed to overcome this?
Yes. All the time. I'm not good enough. All the time. If I'm going to go for an interview, no, I'm not good enough. Maybe I'm
Yeah,
not good enough for this
subhanallah.
interview. Maybe I'm not good enough. And I'll tell you a personal story, which actually just happened to me recently. Well, when I was about 19. So how it is here, I don't know if it is in all households, but in the household in which I grew up in. So it was my brother, it was my uncle. And normally when the boys were like 14, 15, they were car crazy, for example. So my grandfather would teach them how to drive, for example, right? And it was never a thing where we as girls were pushed to, drive or get our driving license. It was up to us in order to, what, I actually want to drive, so let's do it. It's almost like it's a kind of a boy thing. So I developed the sense of wanting to drive I developed that in a very late part of my life when I was like 19 or so. And I decided, no, man, but I also want to drive because I want to be independent. Now, look at that, 19, at the age of 19, right? So then what I did was went to go get my learners, got my learners, then had 5 lessons, and that was it. I had 5 lessons, and that was it. Then I went on to another instructor and I got 10 lessons there, and it was horrible. It was horrible. Then I thought to myself, you know what? Maybe I shouldn't get a male instructor. I should get maybe a female instructor. And Sophia, I think that this might be something so small, but I wanted this so bad. I wanted it. I wanted it. I wanted it really, really, really bad. And it took me, then of course, throughout my journey, I then switched my instructors then to a female instructor, and it was horrible. She shouted at me. I was crying behind the wheel. It was traumatic for me. And at that time, I wasn't the person that I was today. I wasn't someone that could stand up for myself. I wasn't someone that could say, you know what, it's fine, just leave it. You're not making me feel good, because for me, I didn't want to make that person feel bad. It was almost like no was like a swear word for me. So I was like this people's pleaser, wanting to make everyone happy and those type of things. And I let it go. I left it. I changed my instructor, took a break, went on to a new instructor, a male instructor this time. And during that same time period, my brother then also said that he went to go pass out his license, but he's been driving since the age of 14 already. And then I decided, okay, you know what? So if my brother can do it, then I'll do it with the instructor that my brother did it with. And it was a horrible experience again, because the man would shout at me, and I would think to myself, but what is wrong? Why can't I get this? Until now, recently, when I decided, you know what, I'm actually not going to give up on this, because this has been a dream of mine. So I'm going to continue. But I didn't tell anyone I'm going to continue. And when I went the very first time, I failed. I failed my driving test. I was so upset with myself, because I put in so much work. I put in so much effort. So much money went into it. My last savings went into it. And I still didn't get it right. Then I decided, okay, I'm going to take a break. Then COVID happened. So then my learners expired. So then I needed to go again. So I decided, okay, fine, I'm going to go again. But during that difficult time, and this is the thing, Sophia, that when you get something, the waiting period of that something, no one speaks about what you're going through in that waiting period. I was crying myself to sleep at night. No one knew that. I went on my musla for tahajjuds. I was crying, by Allah, Allah, I just want this. Grant this for me. Allah, can Allah grant this for me? Because I'm tired of taking public transport. This has been a dream of mine. And it took me at the age of 30, yes, at the age of 31. This year, Sophia, this year, the 24th of January 2024, I passed my driving test. And
Congratulations.
everything that I was doing during that time, because I was going for my lessons, because I needed to go again, because I needed to refresh, and everything that went wrong, I decided, you know what, this is from Allah. So whatever wrong this is, I'm going to learn from it, and I'm going to improve on it. And it changed me in a sense of, I was more mature, number one. And my instructor said to me, I can see that you're more mature now. Maybe when you were younger, it wasn't your time. But it took me back, and it will always take me back. And I will be forever grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for granting me this, because this was a lifelong dream that I wanted to achieve. And it felt amazing. I felt as if I thought that I would never see the day that I would pass my driving test. It felt amazing, the way people, or the way couples, want to be parents so bad, and it doesn't work out for them, and they're going through difficulty. And then, after many trials and tribulations, they finally find out that they are pregnant. That is how I felt. I wanted this. I was weighing the options, and it takes me back to when I asked of Allah, and Allah answered me. So I'm trying to, sometimes I still have that doubt in my mind that if I'm going for something, then it's like, am I good enough? Am I not good enough? But this experience that I've gone through now, when I go towards something, whether it is a job interview, whether it is something, I always tell myself that if it's meant to be, it will happen. If it's not meant to be, then Allah is saving me from something greater. You know? So that has been my stand thing for the whole time. And I want to tell you an interesting analogy where I spoke to my brother, and my brother said to me, you know, I'm new at this company of Allah. I'm like, how do you mean you're new at this company of Allah? So he said to me, just picture it as if, just picture this whole world as if Allah is the founder, you know, Allah is the CEO, right? So now you have all these workers, you have this the manager, you have the floor manager and so on. And he says, I'm only a janitor because at the moment I can only do, or I'm only earning a janitor's salary, for example. Whereas the CEO, they wake up for tahajjud every day, they do this every day, they do that every day. Whereas I'm only starting out now, so I'm building myself up. And I thought that was so interesting of the analogy that how he says. And he says that when the world is asleep, you know, and they made this example. He went to madrasa, and they taught him that they gave the analogy of a son and a father. So let's take, for example, you have the father, and the father's got maybe 20 children, right? So now the father comes out of work, and all 19 children run to that father. Daddy, I want this. Daddy, I want this. Daddy, da 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 da. And there's that 20th child that's standing in the corner that's not running. So now the father says, yes, yes, yes. Okay, I'm going to give it to you. I'm going to give it to you. So everyone is happy. Everyone is calm. Now the father goes, take a shower. He does whatever he needs to do. He's now relaxed and all of that, you know, watching whatever. Now that 20th child come. Everyone is asleep now. That 20th child come in a very humbling way, in a very humbling tone, saying, Daddy, I just want a packet of chips. Can you buy me a packet of chips, Kanala? And then the father will say, yes, but of course, let's go. And he says to me that, be that 20th child. When the whole world is sleeping, you go to Allah, you ask Allah for whatever it is that you want. And you cry by Allah. And that's exactly what I did. And that's exactly what I got. And I've seen it so many times, the miracles of tahajjud, so many times. And rightfully, like you've mentioned, Sophia, I am fortunate to be able to, you know, work in an environment where I can perform my salah on time. I can, you know, listen to reminders and stuff. However, shaitan is very busy, especially here. And it is especially here where it's so easy for me to say,
Of
you know
course,
what?
of course.
It's 1 o'clock. No, I'm not going to make the word now. I'll make it at 2:30 maybe. I'll make it at 3 o'clock. I need to keep myself and hold myself accountable as well. And it's not only, we don't only have Muslims working here. We've got the people of Christian faith working here as well. We've got interns from various backgrounds working here as well. And it's a big test, and it's a big challenge every single day to be able to get yourself together, to be able to stand firm on your faith, and to be able to, you know, show them the beauty of Islam. Speak to them in a tone where, you know, it's not disrespectful. Tell them something that won't hurt their feelings. I need to remind myself of that every single day. It happened to me at the office already. And I told this person, I never treat you, or I never speak to you in a way that is disrespectful towards yourself. Why would you do that to me? And my motto is always treat someone the way you would want to be treated. And this is everything, Sophia, that I've learned on this program, sitting with the experts, sitting with the shuyukh, you know, all these different programs, because I always say that I'm not only this host, I'm also someone that is learning along as well. I'm also developing myself as well, in order to, sometimes you forget that, you know what, you just said something wrong now, and it maybe you don't think in that moment that, you know, that might have hurt that person's feelings, until you then reflect and you think back to yourself, like, you know, how and what did I do to make to hurt this person's feelings or so. And
Yeah,
out
what
of,
you're saying is also so
yeah,
important to have this muraqaba, to look at yourself and do this accountability with your own self.
Right.
But it comes with training. It is
Mm,
a training of the nafs,
mm,
because it's not
mm.
something that comes easily. To
And
look at
Sophia,
the end
even
of
if
the day, like you
yeah,
said, yeah,
even if I should tell you, even like for example, we know the hadith of our beloved Prophet Muhammad
sallallahu
sallallahu
alaihi
alaihi
wasallam,
wasallam, where the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam
sallallahu
says
alaihi
that
wasallam.
a true believer is that one who loves for himself what he loves for his brother, right?
Yeah. Mm.
And the world that we're living in today, where social media is all over, where we have all these social media influences, where we have all these, couple goals and this and that and so on, it's easy to get roped in and think to yourself, but my marriage is not like this. Or now a colleague comes to you and a colleague says, oh, you know what? I had such an amazing time with my husband. He bought me this gift or he bought me that gift. Now you in your back of your mind think, but my husband didn't give anything, you know? And it's that thought, that can be almost like like the nafs, like that can be like nafs for that person, or that can be that jealousy, that evil eye for that next person. So we or I as an individual constantly need to remind myself that I need to wish well. If I want to be happy, then why not? Would I want to wear, for example, I'm making for example, if I want to wear broken clothes, so why would I give the next person broken clothes if I'm cleaning out my closet? Would I want to wear something that has like stains on the, why would I want to give it to that person because of that person is a beggar on the street or what? And I just think that it's because of this program and it's because of working at the Voice of the Cape radio station. It shaped me into the person that I am today. However, you do get those people that come into your life that tests you, that
Of course.
that think to yourself, hey, what's going on here? You
Yeah,
know?
of course. Because
And
Shaitan is obviously he's going to get busy
he's
more
busy.
with the
He's busy
people
as
who try to hold on to the rope of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Those
correct.
who don't believe, those who are just so far away, it's less work for him.
Mm.
But the people who try to remind others and who try to be steadfast,
Yeah.
these are the people who are his prime targets.
Yes. And
And also, like, I don't want to go into this tangent, but one of the things that you mentioned about couples and marriage, and let's not forget that one of the main thing that Shaitan and his army are mostly working on is breaking families,
mm,
breaking marriages.
mm,
So this is not to be taken, slightly.
yeah.
Like
So
these
true.
thoughts and these things happening, do not think that this is just okay, it happens to everybody. It is specifically Shaitan is targeting you. If you are married, he's going to attack you from every direction to break this marriage.
Mm. So true.
So let's not forget about it. He is like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He tells us how it is. He is our sworn enemy, and
Mm,
we should take him as an enemy.
mm.
So let's not forget that he is working against us.
So true, Sophia. And I think that also when couples maybe, can't have children or they may be struggling to have children, and now somebody else comes and says, you know what, we're actually pregnant and so forth. Sometimes it's difficult to say mashallah for that person because you're thinking to yourself, like, Allah, why them? Why not me? It happened to me not from that point, but from the licensing point where I knew someone that passed out and I wasn't happy. I wasn't happy for that person at all. I went to go cry on my musla for Asr and I said, Allah, why her? Why not me? You know? Why did you grant this to me? Why did you grant her this and not me? And I realized that it was all in Allah's timing. It was all Allah's perfect timing. And I'm I always say that yes, I am the person sometimes that asks Allah, Allah, why are you doing this to me? This is too difficult. I don't want to do this. But it then takes someone like from my family, like maybe even my mother or my friend to tell me, you know what? If you're not going to go through this, then how are you going to attain Jannah? How are you going to be Jannah ready? Because nothing on this earth is easy. And nothing on this earth is forever, but Jannah is, you know. So that has been my background, and I think that from an early age, like you've mentioned, you're right, Sophia, from an early age, I used to see my grandfather going to masjid. I used to pray with my grandmother. I attended madrasa with my grandmother, and that was her way of encouraging me in terms of, gaining that connection to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And I think that if it wasn't for her, then I wouldn't also have the strong connection. I know that Allah is there. I know that Allah is listening to me. I know that Allah is testing me. But my motto for the year 2024 was to speak to Allah as if Allah is your best friend. Like just speak to Allah about anything.
That's a
Whatever it
beautiful
is.
segue for me and a transition to go to my next question
Yeah.
as we are approaching the end of our time together. As you know, the podcast is named Women of Ihsan, and what I love to ask each guest, because every time I get another answer, is what it means for you, Yasmina, to strive to become a woman of Ihsan now, September 2024. How does this translate in your life?
Wonderful. I think it's a question that I'm going to have to give some thought to, but also, becoming a woman of Ihsan is all about just doing what is pleasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, striving towards excellence. We won't ever be perfect, and we know that. However, we as human beings, or me, for example, to strive towards excellence, because I know that the year 2024 has been, a lot for me. It started off so beautifully for me, achieving all my goals that I wanted, and Allah has proved that Allah answered my dua. So for me, it's almost like giving back in a sense, where I want to make Allah happy. I want to make Allah proud, and also, should my life end and my life flash in front of my eyes, I want it to be something worth looking at. I don't want it to be like all these ugly events or anything to that effect. So any gap that I would get, it's always to first and foremost thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but most importantly, never to forget to ask Allah for forgiveness. Because once your life comes to an end and you're going to be standing in the court of Allah, then I'm going to ask myself, but what did I do with my time here? Why didn't I strive towards being excellent? Why didn't I strive towards being beautiful? Not only for me, but treating the other people in my life that I come across the way I would want to be treated. And that is ultimately what it means to strive towards that and to be, for Allah to be pleased with me and for me to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
May Allah grant you tawfiq in this and success in this life and the next.
Ameen.
I absolutely loved what you just said about like coming at the end of our life, and we are all going to this point in life where we are going to say goodbye to this dunya because we are going to enter the eternal life. And this dunya is the life where we are tested, and this is where we have to show our true self, what's in our heart. And when we look back and we will be given our book of deeds, are we going to be happy with what's in it?
True.
Once the veil of this life is lifted, and when we can see the unseen, when we can see the reality of this world, are we going to realize, oh my gosh, I completely missed the plot. I was running in all directions and I didn't pay attention to what was going to save me? Or are we going to be relieved and happy because now we are safe, because we understood the reality of this world? Either today, in 10 years, let's say even in 100 years, everybody, absolutely everybody, me, you, everyone who's listening now, in 100 years, we all gone. We are all
So
going to be
true. Oh
gone.
my word. Yes, and I think that the end goal, right? All of us, we want Jannah and we know how beautiful Jannah is, but it's the journey that we need to take in order to
Yeah,
be or to become, Jannah really. And I
yeah,
think that, I speak to Allah, I say, Allah, I'm very afraid to die. I don't think I'm ready to die or so because I don't know how the angels will receive me. But inshallah, I always make dua that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala should grant me a good ending to my life and, take me at a time where Allah is pleased with me and,
I mean,
so that I can also, attain Jannah. Amin.
yeah. But we, Alhamdulillah, for again for our faith and the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who taught us what was the right mindset to have and to wish to meet with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because he also wants to meet with someone who wants to meet with him. And the
Yes.
contrary is true, like someone who doesn't want to meet with Allah, well, Allah, he doesn't want to meet with them neither. So may Allah protect us from this.
Amin.
Um, and as long as we keep this conversation with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we keep our intentions in check, we try to be as sincere as possible, because we are going to fall and we need to rise again on our feet and strive to find his pleasure, inshallah, with his permission. We are coming to a close, and subhanallah, so many teachings, so many inspiring um, stories that you told us. Is there another message or a piece of advice that you would like to leave the audience with?
Yes. Never think that you are not good enough. At the end of the day, don't do things so that people can pat you on the back. You're going to have to be that person to pat you on the back. You're going to have to be that person to say, you know what, Yasmina, I did a fantastic job today, or you did a fantastic job today. That self talk that you have with yourself is very important. And I know that it can be negative. We can, compliment everybody else, but when it comes to ourselves, we're the hardest on ourselves. So never think that you are good enough. And whatever it is that you are going through, whether you are going through loss, whether you are going through, not being able to find a job, Allah's time, not your time. And Allah has a perfect plan for you. Whatever loss that you have incurred, and this is something that I believe, that every bad thing happens only for a good reason. You might not see it now, you maybe will see it in future. But just remember that.
Amazing, beautiful. Thank you so much for this. And
Sure. Yeah.
and another question that I love to ask is there someone that you would like to see on the podcast as a guest, and what would you like to ask her?
Can it be anyone?
Well, it has to be someone who makes you think about becoming a woman of Ihsan.
Okay, so it would be Ustad Yasmin Mujahid, and I would ask her, how did she cope with loss? Yeah, how would she
I
cope
would
with
I
loss?
would also love to have her. Do you have
Inshallah,
do you have her
inshallah.
number?
She's been on our radio station a few times, and I've had the honor of
Really?
meeting her. I've had the honor
Really?
of meeting her twice years when she was here in South Africa, and she
Oh,
did
mashallah.
speak also about losing her father, but
Mm.
not in depth, man. So yes, inshallah, I can never get enough of her though. So yes,
Yes, she's amazing, mashallah.
mashallah.
May Allah increase her in
Amen.
beneficial knowledge and help us benefit from her and all the likes, inshallah. Thank you so much, Yasmina. Is there a way that people can, follow you on social media, or maybe just on the Voice of the Cape, or do you have a presence online?
Yes, I actually do. However, I don't post a lot. A lot is on the Voice of the Cape's website. So that is www.vocfm.co.za. My program, that is where you can listen live to my program as well, live audio streaming. And it is South African time at 4:30 all the way up until 6:30. And I think it would probably be different time zones, So that is where they can find me. And of course, they all the information will be available or is available on our website.
Amazing. Thank you so much,
And so
Yasmina,
much
for
for
this
having
beautiful
me.
story, for
Mhm.
making the time in your busy schedule. Jazakallah khairan. May Allah bless you and, grant you everything that your heart's desires in this
Ameen.
life and the next. Allahumma ameen. And
Ameen.
reunite you with your grandmother. Again,
Ameen.
may Allah have mercy on her. Thank you as well, you who is listening to the podcast. I hope that you enjoyed the conversation as much as I did. I didn't see time pass at all. Please show us your support. You can tag us on Instagram. I think the Voice of the Cape also has an Instagram
And
page.
Instagram,
You
yes.
can tag us there or leave a comment below, either you listening on YouTube or someone else. And share with your friends and family to give more visibility to the podcast. And inshallah, we'll see you in the next episode. Yasmina, thanks so much again. And salamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Shukran so much for having me. Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.